So next, we will be joined by Harry to moderate the panel with Sean, Joseph, and Ernie.
So the general topic of the panel will be about data, and I'll be asking questions about data. But before we start going into that direction, I'd first like to get a bit personal and find out from each of you, how did you get into blockchain, and was data part of it at all, especially for Ernie and Sean?
Yeah, so I started off as an economist. So I taught economics in the universities, and I started doing research in, so I've always been doing research in technology. So one day I discovered Bitcoin, and I was doing research on Bitcoin, right? And it all started from that. So we started looking at Bitcoin, and that has a lot to do with the data. So the first things we did was to actually scrape the whole blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain data, and try to, pass it out so that we can do some analytics on it. Yeah. So that's how it happened, like from 2014. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Actually a ex-banker from Bank of America previously, and ABN AMRO. I specialize in something called automated algorithmic trading. I design and develop automated trading systems for the banks and the hedge funds, especially on the retail level. And that's how, because when my first ICO was with Kyber Network, they're a decentralized exchange. That was when they started off. They needed somebody who knows how exchanges work, how foreign exchange transfers, and how the market would react to pricing. So that was when I was looped into the crypto world to help to design that trading platform, price discovery, reserve management, that kind of stuff, all the technology stuff at the back. So that was about 2 years back. And then subsequently, now Kyber is already pretty stable. I'm also, right now I'm helping BridgeX to solve the other side of the liquidity problem, which is on the loan side, on the market space, and how to design all these deep liquidity issues and how to solve them within the market space. That's how I got involved in the crypto space.
My background was in telco. So primarily in telco data analytics. Why that, right? So telco nowadays actually face quite a serious issue in terms of revenue drop and all this. So they have been figuring out a way, how to regain back in a fight compared to Google, Facebook, and all this. So they have a lot of data, but they have difficulty in monetizing that. So my department was actually in that, looking at that, developing different kind of enterprise analytic use cases based on the telco data and Singtel actually. Yeah. So after that, then I quit Singtel. Nothing gets done in telco. So doing a startup, yeah, at least things get done. So for one year plus, then we start to look at the data as I mentioned, then working with market research firms like GMO, and start to get into the flow of putting data on blockchain.
So started going into blockchain after you worked with Swipe.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Then data is a very broad word. It's a catch-all phrase. It's like blockchain. So which part of that pie are the two of you working on, and how would you use data for your project?
Yeah, for us, the data that we really care about are use case specific and depends on our ecosystem. So for example, financial services, for example, medical services, right? We are more focused on getting the data, building our platform to accumulate the data, but not in a way where in a way where it's extremely centralized and someone actually can monetize it on their own, right? And we are looking at meaningful use cases where the analytics are important. So for example, for data assessment, right? When we want to do data assessment, right? When is it really meaningful and useful? Right, of course, in marketing or in retail, it's interesting to get advertisements, when the system things I like or the AI things I like. But ultimately, what is meaningful to us are things like getting access to credit services, to financial services, getting access to insurance, for example. So those are things that we think are more meaningful interpretations of doing data assessment.
BridgeX, you notice I'm sitting in the center, right? Okay, what happened is that we are more like a bridge because they are more on the data producing. We on the other end of the spectrum is that we consume data. How do we consume data is that we use this information, personal information, to decide, for example, your credit scoring. Yeah, and also things like your behavior, basing on, let's say, for example, they produce data and say that, hey, this guy every month remit X bucks to this country and X bucks to that country, and he's a consumer, frequent consumer of remittance. And basing on this kind of data, the remittance agent, the party that's operating on our platform or ecosystem, would then decide to give what kind of discount structures to attract and maintain these users. So we are in the center here. We are bridging everything and using those data as a consumer for the benefit of the end users.
For Swipe, it's mobile. Simple as that, just mobile. So you can think of us as, for app developers over here, you can think of us as decentralized mobile app flyer, decentralized mobile flurry. You can think of us as any kind of decentralized mobile attribution. So everything around mobiles, either from your mobile data from your user profile, mobile data from your behavior, content interest, device, network. Of course, all this currently is being done without consent. So putting the consent part onto the network is key.
So interestingly, we had 4 projects working on financial inclusion, speaking at ETHKL last month. So how would these projects be able to work with Jupiter Chain to leverage on your data marketplace?
So I would say number one is how they manage the data on their platforms, right? So a lot of financial inclusion projects have not fully considered that when they are building up their blockchain systems, because like inherently blockchain is transparent, right? So if they bring in the data, every node on the system actually knows full information of the users. Of course, for financial inclusion, right, a lot of people will be thinking, oh, it's a developing country, they don't really care about how their data is being used, right? Or but then if you really seriously think about it, the way that countries develop versus the way that countries adopt regulation is very different. Right, so we have this wave of data privacy laws coming towards us from Europe, and we will see that wave slowly move on into every country in the region as well. Right, and that is going to catch up faster than you can imagine. Right, and by the time you collected all this data, maybe you have collected 2 years worth of data from your users for your money lending service in Malaysia, for example, then suddenly the government tells you can't use it for anything. Right, so then how are you going to manage it, and how are you going to do it? So we think our way is a good way forward. We're not saying that we will be the platform that does this, but we think that this is the new paradigm of the data economy. And it also enables the idea of doing analytics and assessment as well. So that's what we want to ultimately achieve.
Just a quick one while you're at it. So you mentioned these data laws coming to Asian countries as well, right? And you mentioned the data residency laws that are already there. What do you think about how with blockchain and cryptocurrencies coming out, all this decentralized world that's coming, do you see these laws still remaining relevant, or would it be kind of disrupted?
I think the problem with regulation is it's very hard to change as well once it comes in, right? So the way that we design the platform is we want to work around it, and we want to think of ways to work around it that is not really disruptive, right? So data residency laws considered, actually, but if you really think about it, do you really need to replicate everything all over the world, right? So you don't really need to do that, right? For a lot of use cases, it's very specific to the region. Right, I only need the data in that region. So why do I bother replicating it to somewhere where the person get access to the data and they don't really know what to do with it as well. Right? But we still want to enable the fact that data analytics companies may not be in that local system. Right? For example, if a Singapore bank is interested in people in Vietnam and how they borrow, how they lend, right? So they can still, with our model, they can still go about doing analytics into that ecosystem without taking the raw data out of it. Right? They get their results and they get their outcomes, and that's what we're trying to do. And so we are kind of skirting around the regulation, right? And trying to make sure that the governments don't feel extremely threatened by the platform as well. That their citizens' data is going to go everywhere around the world and things like that. Yeah.
So on to Joseph. So you were from Kyber and now you're BridgeX. So I imagine you must have had a lot of data on the market. So can you share some insights on what you have on, say, the number of actual users or traders of cryptocurrencies and the actual amount that's being traded either in market or OTC, perhaps?
That's a very interesting question. Yes, I deal with a lot of data as in prices and volumes because of trading experience that I have. Right now, if we look at a whole, the entire crypto space market, we have a daily trading volume of today, I think last 24 hours is about 11 billion. We averages maybe about 15 billion a day. Now we put it into context here of the mainstream financial, real world traditional financial volume. We trade in the banking system about 5.1 trillion a day. Out of the 5.1 trillion a day, 30% are spot, 30%, another 30% is on futures. Let's just focus on spot. Spot means it's like money changer. You go there, you pay cash, you get something back. So spot, 30% of that, we're still looking at about 1.5 trillion kind of value volume a day in the real financial world. And today at 15 billion worth of transactions volume in the crypto world, we are still very, 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 very small. Yeah, in adoption. If you look at the overall wallet, how things are penetrating into the market, if you look at the number of addresses in Bitcoin, let's just say, we see the curve that goes like this when it hits until January, and then the hyperbolic stops. Okay, everybody knows that. So the number of new users coming into the market stops. It slows down, but until about June. And from June, Bitcoin addresses increases up hyperbolic again. So the actual, what we're seeing is that the market is actually increasing, penetrating again. If you look at Ethereum has maybe about 40 million unique addresses. We also see this same curve that goes on and hit until about, again, January. Everything hits, January happens, and it slows down. Now, the profound thing here is that Ethereum is actually slowing down more than Bitcoin. And from the past 2 months onwards, I think about April onwards, the curve of new Ethereum wallet coming in is no longer hyperbolic, but it's a 45-degree. Coincidentally, if you look at the price, that goes like this and then it drops back down and goes that, okay, January happens. And what eventually here is that we are seeing penetration. We are not seeing the price increasing, we're seeing the price stabilizing, or rather fluctuating thereabout. But the number of users are increasing. What we're seeing is that eventually, what this translates to is that we are seeing a lot of holders. People who are buying this, who missed the boat. Of course, those guys who bought in December and January, they are cursing right now.
Forced to be holders.
Yeah, they're forced to be holders. But what happened is that we are seeing a new group of people coming in from the mainstream, starting sometime in about June. They are the holders who are coming in. And from an OTC and the bigger, we call them the whales, market size. If you look at the whole 15 billion kind of turnover from the what's reported by the exchanges, the OTC markets are actually double or triple that. The OTC markets are what we call the over-the-counter. They are like the money changes. They are not reported on the real exchange. This is where the whale trades. You don't go in and go to Binance, I'm not quoting any exchange, and put in a $1 million worth of order. You're going to move the market. So these guys, the whales, they actually go to the market makers, the OTC guys, to do these kind of transactions. The underlying, the iceberg, if you look at the iceberg, bulk of the transactions volume is actually at the OTC level. Yeah, that one we are looking at about maybe 2 times. But and from that angle, we are actually seeing more financial institutions who missed the boat coming onto it, and they are not coming into trade. These people, if you look at all this data that we collected, points that people are coming in to buy and hold. Okay, and we are seeing penetration slowly, and this is actually more healthy for the longer run.
Thanks, Joseph. So for Sean, so you've been running CepatSwipe and Agila for a while now, and you said there's been issues with data, right, from your business. Can you share some stories with members of the audience here about what these issues are based on your real experiences?
This is less on the blockchain part, but more on why we need to implement validation on the SDK level or the client level. So primarily, what the existing mobile advertising platform that we have is doing is we are rewarding users for advertisements being clicked or being viewed. So you can, as you can imagine, all kind of fraudulent behavior will happen. Right. For example, ours we actually put it on the lock screen. So when actually users turn on the phone, the first thing that they see is lock screen content, and they swipe left onto the content, and they will view the content and get rewarded. Kind of a bit like a blockchain token incentive, right? So this is, for a blockchain world, it's fine. The tokens are being minted, just like that. Yeah. But for a real world, like our traditional business, this is very painful because every dollars that we pay out is actually real money from our investors, our previous VCs. So it's very painful. So what happened is this: so we have noticed from the data set we collected that there are a lot of fraudulent behaviors because of this incentive, over incentive of particular content or advertisement. So the solution is a series of behavioral tracking of the fraudulent behavior, such as over-clickings, just like Instagram, right? When you click too many times, then it will detect within a certain time frame, then we will start to blacklist, move it to a temporary blacklist, staging blacklist, after that move to a final blacklist to actually stop them from participating in the campaign. So there are also other kind of, either from a frequency perspective, from a recency perspective, from a referral perspective, like how frequently and how fast they actually refer people to the network. So all this actually you can tell very easily. So imagine there are people who can actually swipe about 70,000 times a day. So that is their professional. These are the professional clickbait people in the network. So that we have to rule out immediately. Yeah. So then of course, with hopefully with data validation at the SDK level, at the client level, before we push the data to the whole blockchain network, this can reduce tremendously the fraudulent behavior and clean up the data, right? You also don't want all the noises go into the network and then create unnecessary post-processing kind of effect on the data itself.
So I guess the follow-up question would be, how would blockchain resolve these issues? Or is it not resolvable?
Frankly, blockchain is a database, right? So it's not, and the smart contract TPS is just that. No matter what kind of chain you are using, maybe quad chain can hit 14,000, but there's just a limit to it. So what you need to do is still at the beginning of the data capture. That's why we put a lot of focus on data capture in our project to clean up, do a lot of data cleansing. Then after that, you use blockchain as a way to decentralized ways to start capturing some of this data into a distributed storage like IPFS, not decentralized. It's impossible to put it onto a mainnet because it can't handle. So then you use the on-chain technology to manage the fingerprinting part of the data sets. For example, does it move correctly throughout the whole value chain? Is it being used multiple times? When a data seller receives this, does it distribute it many times to different parties? And that is actually an abuse of data, like what Facebook is doing. Yeah.
So interesting that you mentioned Facebook with all this this talk about privacy and data and stuff like that.
Another data like today, 4 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So then follow-up question would be, so blockchains in general are very transparent, right? And I think both Ernie and Sean covered this just now. So to me right now, I don't see how you could do it where you store the data and the nodes don't see the details of these people, right? So how do you put it on the blockchain but also make it private? If that makes sense.
So our approach is this, right? So if you really look at, I see blockchain implementations in two worlds. One is the world of digital assets, which are cryptos and currencies. Right, so in that world, total transparency makes sense, especially if you are looking at anonymized transactions, or you're looking at, trying to make your coin function as well as money or cash. Right, but in the other world, which is blockchain for data and blockchain for information, it's a totally different paradigm. Before I joined Jupiter Chain, I was working in IBM and I was doing blockchain implementations for enterprises. And a lot of these use cases that we were looking at was like, it's a group of companies or an industry wanting to share information with each other, but they don't want everyone to see everything, right? So they want selective viewing, they want specific channels. So that's why if you look at the evolution of the permission blockchain technologies like Fabric, like Quorum, like R3, they have all evolved to a state where they have some kind of private messaging and a state where only selected people within the network can see certain information. Right, so if we really think about information level and how we bring it into the public domain, how do we consumerize it or make it retail, right? Then, so the self-sovereign identity people are doing one part of it. They are actually storing the identity info off-chain, right? It's secure off-chain, and only allowing the identity to be verified on a decentralized platform. But when we think about data, like transactional data, can I really store all of that off-chain, and does storing off-chain give it value? Right, because what gives the blockchain value is the immutability of the data, right? We want the data to get recorded on the blockchain and to be auditable, to be verifiable. But actually, if you really think about those things, right, you don't really need the data to be open in that way. For it to be auditable, it can still be encrypted data, right? As long as you provide the right partners or someone with the right authority to come in and decrypt the data and look at it. Right, so I don't see the conflict there between the transparency idea and the encrypting data before putting it on blockchain idea. It's just how we are going to deal with, like, as we evolve the use cases of blockchain. I think privacy becomes necessary for a lot of use cases, and encryption schemes then become very important. And how we handle that without sacrificing any efficiency of the platform is also very important. So that's something that I won't say that we have the solution for right now, but we are working towards and we are trying to develop on this one.
Yeah, sure. This is a very deep question, privacy. There are a couple of angles to it. I must make myself clear that I am on a public blockchain level. I do not believe in private tokens or total privacy, because on a transaction level, it is our responsibility to have some form of transparency, because this is where dodgy business comes in, money laundering, terrorism financing, and all that kind of stuff. You cannot, in my opinion, we cannot have an anonymous coin. Now, having said that, blockchain like Bitcoin, public blockchain, they are not anonymous, they are pseudonymous. Now, there's a big difference. A pseudonymous token is that it has a valid address and everything is traceable from beginning to the end, from the day it was minted until where it is today. That is pseudonymous. That means I can actually use the blockchain to track a drug trafficker and prove that he has done that transaction and put him to jail. That is pseudonymous. Anonymous is when somebody does a transaction and nobody can tell that full transaction is. So today, Bitcoin is less useful to a money launderer or a drug trafficker than cash. If you hold out the $50 today, chances are it has gone through some dark path, and there's no way you can track that, but you can track the full thing on blockchain, on Bitcoin. So that is why my stance is that I do not believe in full anonymous coins. Yeah. Now, having said that, put it on the other side, as a consumer from BridgeX perspective, we want to benefit you. What does it, all this privacy, what does it mean to you? Okay, we want to have some kind of data collection point. Let's say, for example, I'm a lender. Today, somebody, or I'm a remittance agent, and somebody comes in and say, hey, you have been remitting with the other guy. Today, you come on to me, and I look at you. Who are you? I don't know you. How much discount can I give you? What kind of loyalty can I give you? I don't know. But with this kind of information on data, on how your behavior is, how you were using the other guy, immediately if I have access to your information, on the spot, I can customize your experience and give you the best kind of discount structure, experience, what kind of bonus systems that you would like. Because I know from the fact that today, on day one, without knowing anything about you, I have the data. I know what kind of consumer you are, what segment you belong to. So from that angle, we want data to be transparent. You see, that's a conflicting part of this. So there is no right and no wrong. Now, having said that, that is why we have private blockchain. We have Fabric, IBM, Hyper Fabric, where you can actually do permission-based blockchain. Our stance, my personal stance, is that if you need anything that's on private, that is permission-based, it should be on residing on what we call a custodian, a data custodian. This custodian is a neutral venue where they collect all this data and hold it in a permission-based blockchain. Anybody who needs it with your consent can take it out and benefit you as the consumer. But at the same time, if needed to, it can be fully traceable. This is my opinion on how privacy, data privacy, should work on a global scale for everybody.
It would be weird, right, if you say that you put some data, even though it's encrypted on a public mainnet, and then say that it's private. So what you can do is this. First, you keep the identity anonymous, so you can use, have to go back to Google and Apple. So use Google Advertising ID or IDFA as initial stage for the anonymous identity. Of course, then you can map your own unique identity on a decentralized identity, like what Jupiter is trying to do, for example. So that's one part. Second part is actually set up private clusters for the data storage. And I see that eventually, for real adoptions of blockchain, it may still need to go down that path, either from a data residency perspective or from enterprise applications. Because for this whole economy to work, you need to cater for both the public mainnet kind of ecosystem, but at the same time you need to cater for enterprise side, which certain level of dedicated clusters are required. Yeah. So that will be the private clusters.
So I think we have time for just one last question. I understand all three of you are either running projects or are working, have had work in the countries around the region, and this is a data collection point. So what are some insights on the regional market sections, such as Indonesia, Philippines, or Vietnam? I just heard today that apparently Indonesia has more crypto traders than stock traders. So yeah, so just share with us Malaysian, mostly Malaysian crowd here, some of your insights. So start with Sean.
Malaysian, by the way. I'm from Malacca, but it just happens to set up a company in Singapore, and then happens that the business, the primary business operation is in Indonesia and Philippines. Yeah. So for Indonesia, I think it's a piece of meat that everybody is going after right now in the crypto space. So with they have existing about Indodex, which is previously Bitcoin.co.id, so led by Oscar. I think they have achieved 1 million users right now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So that the trading size is small. So everyone trades about, those retail investors trade about a few $100s kind per ticket size. However, the potential is there due to the fact that the high mobile penetration, high unbanked, very mobile savvy. Trust me, I mean, when I say the Indonesian youngsters are very savvy, they are really, really very savvy. So a lot of graduates from Yogyakarta, from Bandung, from Malang, they are extremely smart. In fact, they form primary engineering team within our engineering team. So the only barrier they have is language. Yeah. Other than that, they are ready to be deployed upon graduation. So that's what we noticed. The adoption is picking up, so much so that Coin1 from Korea is coming into Indonesia. Coinbase is in already, and there are a lot of so-called China exchanges, F-coin models coming up to in Indonesia. Correct. So in terms of community-wise, as I mentioned, right, surprisingly, they are very developer-centric. So there's a community that run by Coin Daily, which has achieved about 11,000 members already, all Indonesians speaking within the chat group, so very localized. At the same time, ourselves, we run the Ethereum chat group and also the meetups. We have about 1,000 users there, so it is picking up slowly. In terms of developers network, I think they are pushing quite hard in terms of in the schools. So they have, the government is really very, very eager and enthusiastic to push startups and young people to grow. So they actually have, I forgot the terms in Indonesia already, like 1,000 startups a year kind of concept to push the graduates, incentivize the graduates to get into all kind of startups, and include, of course, definitely blockchain. So universities like ITB, BINUS, and all this. Yeah.
Okay, since we started off with Indonesia, Indodex has about, I think on average, about 120 million worth of turnover a day. It is a very big piece of meat. At the peak in I think December, January, Luno, before it was shut down in Malaysia, they were doing something about 70 million, kind of thing a month. From that perspective, we have, how does it going to penetrate in all these markets? In Philippines, the biggest market is actually in remittance. This is why everybody is rushing into remittance, because they have like 20-30% of their populations are foreign workers. In Indonesia, they have micro remittances. Most of them are very, very small amounts, but aggregated wise is huge.
And micro loans.
Yeah, micro loans as well. Micro loans requires a lot of credit scoring. Yeah. Malaysia, then in Philippines, you have this latest, not just a movement, but encouragement from the government to create the first Asia's crypto valley, where they want to encourage all the ICO startups there. In Thailand, we have a proper ICO regulation. They are creating an exchange for ICOs in Thailand. In Singapore, everybody knows, it's one of the most friendly ICO country in the world. Malaysia, surprisingly, I'm also the president for United Crypto Association of Malaysia. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, we are dominated by one keyword.
ETHKL.
No. The keyword sounds familiar, it's called scams. Unfortunately, it's very, very sad that today in Malaysia, surprisingly, we are a pretty rich bunch of people, but we invest in a lot of these scammy ICOs. I've got no idea why. A lot of these cloud contracts, they have a lot of these guys coming out and says that, hey, join my. I come across this plan that says it's a Bitcoin mining. you pay money to me via I mine Bitcoin to you, but I'm not going to give you Bitcoin. I'm going to give you my token. And surprisingly, people buys into it. You know, I have no idea why, but surprisingly, that is what is being the keyword in Malaysia. I think the keyword here is opportunity. If you look at it properly, Malaysians are trying to grab every single opportunity that is up there, whether it sucks or not. Okay, so the idea here is that I will try. If I lose, I'm going to lose 200 bucks. If I gain, I'm going to gain 2,000 bucks. Kind of mentality, kiasu mentality, if you call it. Okay, so that's how Malaysian is right now. Okay, but I feel that as a country level, we should be pushing our government to adopt more on cryptocurrency, because it is the future where it is a borderless world, and cryptocurrency to me is the key in this borderless world. And unless we move ourselves as a country, as a nation towards this direction, we're gonna fall around apart from all the surrounding. I mean, look, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, even Laos are being asked to help them to form the policy for the Southern Special Economic Zone, because Laos are just coming out. They have no resources and nothing, so they're trying to create a new digital economy there. So they need people to help them to formulate these policies as well. So all these countries are coming out and doing this, and Malaysia is actually very slow, and which is very sad. And I hope that everybody will push your local parliament MPs or whoever to, hey, let's look at the cryptocurrency as something we really need. Yeah, but we are rich people just putting in the money in the wrong place.
I'll just make like two very brief comments on this. Number one is the urban community in these regions are different from the rural communities, right? So mobile phone adoption may not be that high in rural communities, and it's a whole different consideration in terms of culture and how they accept technology and how they view, you know, blockchain technology or even apps. So that's one thing. And the other thing is actually navigating around. So ASEAN is a very diverse place, right? So Malaysia is different from Indonesia, different from the Philippines. So navigating the regulation, navigating the political landscape is tough, okay? And you need to learn as you go.
The Bitcoin payment is bad.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. We're now opening for anyone in the audience to ask a question. Let's go with our friend over here in the Definity shirt, and then with Dr. Liu afterwards.
Hi, I'm Ken from Omnilytics platform, and I want to ask you guys about your token economics. Could you expand how the tokens work? Because I understand that Ernie didn't have time just now. Yeah. Thanks.
But in the interest of other people asking questions, maybe if you could in like 2 minutes each.
Yeah, I'll try. So basically, the token economics behind the platform would be in terms of incentivizing. So on the platform level, it's incentivizing of data collection and incentivizing like analytics companies in using tokens to incentivize data owners. And then we want to then through that let the tokens circulate in the ecosystem and the economy, right? So when I receive tokens, I can spend it in the ecosystem. I can go to merchants, I can go to lenders and use it to offset some of my purchases, offset some of my loans. So that's the local ecosystem economics for the token. But on the mainnet and on the main system, what we hope to achieve is to actually look at two things. One is how do we stimulate demand and how do we stimulate supply. Right, so demand side, on the demand side, we are working on the local ecosystems and we are looking at use cases and implementations. So that has to be a push from us to ensure that there's continuous demand. Now how do we then, to really make the ecosystem work, we don't want hoarding. Okay, so we don't want people to do with Ethereum or Bitcoin what they are doing now and hoard those coins and not use it. So we want to encourage circulation, and how do we encourage circulation is a very important aspect of making the ecosystem stable and making it sustain in the long run. Right, so we are looking at that from the protocol level and looking at that from the consensus level. So there are two things we are looking at. One is at the technical level to implement POS directly on the protocol level, which is challenging. But like I mentioned before, our mainnet actually doesn't need a lot of smart contract functionality. And on the other level, we are looking at it from the economic side of things and the incentive side of things. How do you maybe launch a POS system that provides the right incentives such that people will not hodl the coins and such that you encourage circulation. So we're experimenting with that because so I come from an economics background, so we are doing some experiments on that on a simulation level as well.
I got timer this time.
Oh, okay. Rewards payment staking.
Okay, let me take your 4 minutes. No, joking. I'm a dreamer. I believe in enlarging the entire ecosystems instead of just working within that Ethereum. So from a BridgeX perspective, by creating this kind of platform, we are hoping to onboard traditional money, licensed money changers, licensed money lenders, or banks, to actually lend money into the system. So bringing funds from the traditional world into the crypto space instead of just working on an ecosystem within the crypto space. So we're trying to break that cycle. So that's one. Internally, what we're doing is that every payment, every fees are paid using our BXN. And we are trying to do that collateralized model where, if you collateralize your loan with tokens, which creates a lot of lockups, and demands, which will drive up our use case.
Next one is Dr. Yu. Yes. That's your mic.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Liu from EasyWeb Technology. It's a POS company. We deal with mobile payment solutions. So I'm keen to know about remittance, especially Mr. Joseph.
Joseph.
Yeah. Okay, I have a very good connection in Bangladesh and Nepal. I know the bankers there. And also, I work with the MasterCard to launch our POS. So I want to know, do we need license from the central bank for this kind of service? Even in blockchain, even using crypto.
Now, this is a very tricky question from a regulatory perspective. Fortunately, I'm from the bank. Okay. Now, if you look at the actual regulation in Malaysia, we have two very major licenses that three actually, very important licenses that we have to work out. The first one is e-money license. Second one is the e-wallet license. And the third one is remittance license. Now, if you want to do these remittances. Right now, at this point in time, Bank Negara's stance on exchanges is that they treat it as unregulated, provided you have an onshore compliance officer. However, in the future, near future, we're seeing that they are going to implement a requirement for e-wallet license. E-wallet license means that you need this license to hold fiat on your platform. Okay, e-money is when a lot of these current players out there who's giving out points. The point systems. So in what they're doing is that they're trying to turn your ringgit fiat into points. That by itself requires e-money license. But at this point in time, because of the gray area where Bitcoin is not money, okay, you're actually selling a product. So the e-money is not required at this stage, regulatory wise. But if you are trying to remit ringgit out, then you would need the remittance. So if you take away that and you say that, okay, I would just want to do a remittance business, right? Today you do not, you only need to have a local compliance, onshore local compliance officer registered, certified by Bank Negara. And potentially within the next 6 months to 1 year, you will need an e-wallet license.
And I believe we'll take 2 more questions. One over here and one lady in the black hat, and then I think and any more questions you can ask personally to each speaker.
Right, hi. My name is Zul. I'm building the blockchain solutions at HelloGo. So I have 2 questions for Jupiter Chain. The first one is how Jupiter Chain is different from other side chains, because I see lately a lot of side chains start coming in. And the second thing is, you mentioned just now that you are having some challenges managing the private keys, users' keys. So mind sharing how you guys are dealing with the user keys right now at this moment. Thank you.
So I'll say Jupiter Chain is not exactly a sidechain project. It is a blockchain architecture in a sense which incorporates sidechain with a main chain use case. Right, so the sidechain applications here right now that we are working on are permission sidechains, right, and they are very, so I would say the implementation of that itself as a blockchain network is not any different from any permission sidechain. But what we are trying to put in there is the key management, the privacy encryption part, and the data analytics part of it. Right, so that's what we are trying to innovate on that sidechain level. Right, so in terms of the key management, so we've just started research work on it at the moment. So we haven't actually deployed anything. So we are seriously considering different options right now. We are looking at various different implementations, as well as looking at a more traditional approach, because our partner company has actually been in IT security for many years, and they've been implementing key management systems for banks and for large enterprises as well. So we are looking at both the traditional, and we are trying to think of ways that we can find a middle point between the very extreme decentralized ideas, which probably hard to implement at the moment, and a more traditional approach as well. I mean, but full disclosure, we have an MOU now with other goals. So, yeah.
I can share a bit on the key management part. So we are actually looking at having a central wallet managed by us, but at the same time having a logical layers to define the logical provisioning of amount to each user. Then each user have to control their own wallets. Then there will be a mechanism for them to redeem from the central wallet.
Okay, last question, please.
Working? So my name is Roxana, and it's my first time here, so hi everyone. I have a background of 7 years in data and research and about 10 years in business, and I'm the CCO of iMedis, which is a digital healthcare ecosystem. It's like a reverse ICO, so if you ever have questions about medical data, come to me. Now, there's two things that I've tried to pay attention as much as possible. There's two things that I noticed. One, so when you talk about data, there's also an issue with not just storing and transmitting data, but also with the quality, if it's fake or not. So I've heard mobile data, we are so filled with bullshit on social media, for example, and what we share, right? So it's a huge issue because we lie non-stop. We lie about how much we earn, we lie about how much we like things, we lie about how we feel, and so on. So that's what I want to know, how you deal with fake data and how you filter through the actual real data. And the second part, data, and when I hear data, I think of machine learning and AI, and I haven't heard that today. So from the business perspective, you mentioned that, so you're helping companies gather data, right? But companies, and I'm telling you from experience, they don't know what to do with it. So maybe it's more of a suggestion, maybe using machine learning protocols or AI or support in interpreting the data correctly can actually make a difference in the long term in the business models. So.
Yeah, so in terms of the data integrity for our platform, because we are building the sidechains in a permission manner where the nodes are trusted, we do not actually look at use cases where users input their own data. So it all goes through partners in the ecosystem. For example, merchants that I deal with, for example, banks that I deal with or I lend from. So that is the key thing. So if we try to transport that to medical, it'll probably be entered by the hospital or entered by the clinics or the doctors rather than consumers directly putting in information about themselves. Right, so that's one point. In terms of the AI and analytics, we have considered that level a little bit. In terms of what we envision for our platform is a AI and analytics marketplace. We want to allow AI companies to come in and build their machine learning models on our data, but we want to achieve it in a privacy-preserving way as well. Right, and after they build their models, they can offer it as a service, as an assessment service directly on the platform as well. Right, so for example, I come in and I use interesting data on the platform to create a credit scoring algorithm. Then I offer it directly on the platform where a fintech from a new fintech with no credit scoring algorithm on their own can tag on to that and actually utilize it on the platform too. So that's what we hope to kind of get to, hopefully in a few years.
Data integrity. So because we implement it at the client side through SDK, so this the validation is done by itself already. So we actually don't need to handle it at the blockchain level. On the AI analytic, that's not our focus. So our focus is to be a dumb pipe. Just to.
You know how much? So from 2012 to 2017,
yep.
like 5 years in the US,
correct.
AI funding was 14.6 billion.
Yeah. So we work. This is a choice of your battlefields, right? And we choose to play in that collections, the plumbing side, the collections, and the privacy management part. So for the AI and the market research part, so that's why our ecosystem players we focus on looking with market research firms like GMO, who has clients like AC Nelson, JFK, Ipsos. So all these people will actually help us conceptualize in terms of analytics use cases. That's why we onboarded them as our partners to actually go through this whole process of building use cases.
I'm not qualified to speak on this, but I just want to busybody a bit. In my perspective, I believe that the only way to ensure the data is correct is by peer-to-peer ranking. That means when I were to publish my data, somebody else will validate me, like kind of like linking kind of stuff. So the more people who bought my data and believes that it is something that is useful, is real, they will give me a like. So by having this peer-to-peer kind of ranking, eventually over a period of time, we will cleanse this data over time. But also from that perspective, there is already, I believe that there is an ICO is currently doing this AI with data. They are kind of like creating microbots kind of stuff where you decide that I want to train how people swings, or this mobile phone, and if you can create that particular ICO allows you to create that and throw it out, that particular AI model, to throw it out to all the consumers, and the consumers will do whatever they do and they collect the data and then come out with that particular AI result output. Then they will just buy that. I think there is already one out there.
That's more distributed system rather than a blockchain.
Yeah. Alright, everybody, can you get a round of applause for all the speakers?